Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the dangers of creative financing or the downsides of it. If you never heard the term creative financing, creative acquisitions, that just means getting into properties with little to none of your own money initially in the deal, right? And so you're not getting a bank loan. Normally what you do is you ask the seller to pay payments over time or something similar to that, right? And the reason I'm making this video is because I've seen it many videos or gurus promote on the internet that even if you don't have a good deal in the beginning, if you have like a creative financing offer and it's accepted, then that's going to automatically make it a good deal, or they kind of imply that, right? When in reality, it has to be the reverse. You have to have a good deal, and you have to think about the ways to get into that good deal, but it has to be good, right? Like you have a good deal first, and then you look for ways to get into that money with get into that deal with little to none of your own money. But if it's not a good deal, then even if you have creative financing terms, it still doesn't make sense, right? And one of the reasons why you might want to consider working with, let's say, something quote expensive like a hard money lender in the beginning is because you have checks and balances, right? They'll actually check your work, and so if you're wondering, did I overpay for this property, and you show it to the hard money lender, okay, their hard money lender will actually do a comparable market analysis and look for other properties sold in the area, and because they want to protect their interests too, and tell you if it's a good deal or not, right? They're not just going to lend money recklessly, right? But I'm going to show you an example of a downside, a potential no deal using creative financing where the offers actually off. I'm sorry, where the seller is actually offering seller financing in the MLS. Again, this is out in the open market. So if we go down here, this is in beautiful Avondale Estates 30002. And if we scroll down here, we can see the word seller financing options available very big in the first four words. And so sometimes if you might have the misconception from the internet gurus, like, oh my goodness, this is so good, seller financing. I remember that from the YouTube videos, and it doesn't even matter just as long as I have no money down. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and evaluate this and imagine that we're the real estate investor going into this to see if it's a viable deal. Again, the deal is more important than the terms, right? Like, if you don't have a good deal, the terms is just kind of like the sprinkle on or the cherry on the cake, right? Like, okay, get into this deal with little to none of your own money, or if I have to borrow money, that's fine, but just as long as it's a deal. Now let's take a look at this, right? So we take a look at this house. Maybe we it seems like it's already fixed up. Beautiful, right? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Um, Everything looks new. hmm Beautiful. Love the bathrooms. Now, here's the thing. So this might be a house that you want to buy for yourself, but you kind of have to almost think of it as if you were the potential home buyer who's going to live in it, right? Like, first of all, I can't fix and flip this because it's already been fixed. So my only option here is to just buy it for myself personally, just as a home that I can get into little to none of my own money down, which I think, that might be viable, or I can rent it out. Like, that's the only thing I can really think of at this point to do with this property. Now, let's take a look here. This should be a major red flag. So if you can't read that, let me go ahead and zoom that in for you. So if you ever are in, let's say, Metro Atlanta, which is still quite a hot market, in my opinion, and to be honest, like every time I drive in the freeway, I'm always a little bit depressed because like there's so many much more cars and so many people have moved here to Metro Atlanta than they did when I first moved here, right? Like 236 days. So if a property is being for sale and it hasn't been sold in 236 days, and I think it's like 8 months, something's wrong, right? And if you know anything about like real estate investing, the easiest way, or just selling stuff in general, the easiest way to get this sold off of your books is to lower this number. right? But the thing is, it seems like this owner doesn't want to budge from this number, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So if we scroll down here, right, like look at this, seller financing options available, and this is a pretty nice neighborhood. Like I've seen properties go for $1 million here, but again, if you're doing comparisons, they have to be like properties. So if I'm taking a look at this and it's like, well, there's no garage, and it's only 1,300 square feet, I have to look for properties in that area that are 1,300 square feet and no garage, right? Like you cannot compare this property to other types of properties that have different features, and even if it's the same bed or bath. So, for example, I saw a property that had 2 stories and a garage, and it got sold for around this number in that area in the neighborhood, right? So we always, as real estate investors, have to be very sensitive to those little things to understand how much a property would sell for. And the biggest danger in real estate investing, especially when you're fixing and flipping a home, is overpricing it. That's really the biggest danger. You overprice it, then this number is going to increase. And if this number increases, then people think something's wrong with your property. Okay. So seller financing options available. Okay, let's say we actually do this deal. Now, the only thing we can do here is essentially just rent it out, right? So if our rent covers that mortgage payment, which is assumed to be $3,138, and that's assuming I think you have a 20% down payment. Um, and if it's a true creative deal where I put none of my own money, then this number will probably be bigger, right? So, okay, so now let's go ahead and check the price history. So we have the property history here, and even if I never go to the property and never meet the seller, the property history will tell me what's going on, right? So let's take a look here. So we see here that I think it was sold to the current owner in 2022, because when you're fixing and flipping a property, you want a low price, right? It tells you that the upgrades haven't been done, and this person bought it for 270. Now, if you know, like off the top of your head, how much you're going to offer, like in order to do a fix and flip, you have to buy it at a massive discount. So if you have a $250,000 property, off the top of my head, I'm always thinking like, I'm going to offer 150. Okay, so we have $270,000 here, and look how long it took to do the construction. It's about 8 months, right? And so 8 months to listing. And I remember when I did construction on my rental house, it only took like 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to get it rent ready. So massive repairs must have been done. And I think if you take a look at this price in 2022, it seems like the seller, I'm sorry, is fixed to this price, 475,000. And then for some reason listed for rent for 2002. So you see, like you can't get that much rent in this neighborhood, even though you're kind of overpricing the or putting it for sale on $475,000. Now let's take a look here. It says listing removed for the rent. I don't know what that means, but then again, it got relisted soon afterwards for sale. And then I don't know if they were able to rent it for a couple months, but you could see here in August, it got listed again. Oh, price change of $1,000. And I don't know what this one means. I don't know if they even got it rented, which is kind of weird. But again, they're stuck to this $470,000 price, right? So if your price is too high in that current market, your property is just going to stand there, and all your holding costs is essentially going to eat up your profit, right? Because especially if you have like a hard money loan or private lenders, they're going to want to be paid every month with interest, right? So if we look at this, uh, now this guy tries to get it for rent for 3 grand. Um, so 471. Again, we're still stuck to that $470,000 price. And if I had a property on the market for 270 days, I would just like rip my hair out. Like I remember when I first put my rental house out for on the market, I was gonna go crazy because I offered leases to like 8 people, and a month had passed, and I was like, "What am I doing wrong?" Now I got a 14 grand check like 2 weeks later, but I was just like, right? And that's when my rent was comparable to the other rents. And I actually took a look at this. So here's the thing: if you're going to rent it out, you always have to make sure that you have access to the comparables. And rent comparables are a little bit harder than sales comparables because there's not a real easy way to get them. I mean, I get them from rentometer.com. So if I go in here, let's take a look. I actually put in this address, and the average is about 2,800, medium is 2,500. So you're not going to get rent in that $3,000 range, or it's not going to be easy to get in $3,000 range, right? So if you take a look here, and the estimated mortgage payment, where'd that go? Is about $3,000, and you're getting 2,400 in rent. Then again, how is this a good deal? Like you bought it maxed out, way overpriced, because if it's not overpriced, this thing would have been sold. Um, it wouldn't, it's 240 days and the ticker's still counting, right? And this is why with real estate investing, it's not necessarily about how nice the property looks. It's about, is it priced right to the neighborhood, right? That's why I actually saw an article, and let's see if I can look for it right now. Uh, Tiny home in San Francisco sells quickly. It was like 1.5 million, right? So this one right here, 380 square foot Cupertino home listed for $2 million. Tiny home with no, and it actually got sold for 1.7 million. I gotta right one day ago, picks up steam, and they had 170 people look at it. 170 people look at the. I remember the story, okay, because it was just literally, I looked at it yesterday, and I think it got sold. But let's not, hold on. I don't want to play this. Okay, so this is why understanding the comparables in the area is important, because if you think just because you deck out a house and you're not looking for a house that's very similar to yours, even in the same area, right? You're the house will sit on the market if it's overpaid. But even a house like this, where in the Bay Area, and my understanding is that these Bay Area homes, even the single family, are like in the $4 or $5 million range if you go to a certain area, which is why this tiny house could be listed for about 2 million. I think it got sold in like 17 days, right? It got sold in 17 days or something like that, and they had hundreds of people looking at it, and they sold it for 1.7 million. It's crazy, but this is why it's important to look at the numbers and not think about like the upgrades and the finishes and all that. Um, Thinking that's somehow gonna be the most important thing, and that's what's gonna justify your price, right? Too many people do that. Okay, so hopefully, I know it makes I know I've been kind of ranting, but I'm just saying that just because a deal has seller financing doesn't mean you should do it. And whether I had seller, I'm thinking of purchasing this property or not, just because that's seller financing, if this were actually good, even on the retail market, it would have been gone in like 30 to 40 days, right? Probably. Okay, well, this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So, just talking about understanding that creative financing doesn't make the deal. You need to get the deal, and then creative financing is one of your options into getting into the deal, right? Okay, well, have a great day, everybody, and we will speak next time.